since we've gotten a little bit of that intro to anatomy, let's talk a little bit about the human body plan. So that human body plan, it does form kind of a tube within a tube. I don't know if you guys have ever heard, but like at one point in time, you were basically, pardon my language on this, guys, you were just a mouth and an asshole at one point in your life, right? So I'm not wrong. It's that tube within a tube that we're talking about, okay? You start as a bunch of tubes that eventually become other tubes, and you haven't, yeah, I mean, you still have a mouth and an asshole. The human body does also have bilateral symmetry. One side looks pretty much the same as the other side for the most part. Your hands are kind of mirror images, right? You have a dorsal hollow nerve cord that will eventually become your brain and spinal cord. There is segmentation that happens that separates the different pieces of the body to form what they will eventually become, such as organs, like the cell that initially was like a muscle cell isn't going to magically become a like liver cell. So segmentation to separate all of the cells into doing specific roles. And we also have these things called pharyngeal pouches. That's kind of an evolutionary holdover from many millions of years ago. Okay? You will notice that many vertebrae have a very similar basic body plan. That this fish is not a human, but it has a very similar body plan. We evolved differently, but from a same common ancestor. That also has an inner tube, a dorsal nerve, hollow nerve tube, a segmented outer tube, and a notochord. Okay. Tube within a tube. Tube. Inner tube, right in there. Dorsal hollow nerve tube, segmented outer tube, and a notochord. Okay? A grown human has the same body plan. The inner tube, the dorsal hollow nerve tube. I'm going to abbreviate that. The segmented outer tubes and the notochord. You'll note that in the grown human, the notochord isn't super visible. That's because it has become the brain and spinal cord. Cool? Cool. So, we talked about kind of outward orientation of the body, right? Coronal cut, sagittal cuts, transverse cuts. Now we talk about cavities, okay? So your dorsal body cavity, is dorsal the one that's at the front or at the back? The back, yeah. Your dorsal body cavity contains your cranial cavity and your vertebral cavity. The way that you can kind of remember that is that sharks have a dorsal fin. That dorsal fin on a shark, it's on their back, right? So remember that dorsal, the fin on the back, is the back. Back is back. Back is back is back is back. You know, you with me? Cool. Your cranial cavity, what do you think that might hold? Your brain. And then your vertebral cavity, your spinal cord. Yeah. Hold your brain, hold your spinal cord. The ventral body cavity, the front or anterior, is divided into kind of several parts. You have your thoracic cavity that is divided into 3 parts. 2 lateral parts that have your lungs.
Hey.
Hi.
So you are going to get moved to BSS 109.
Okay.
And they want you to stop by the dean's office to pick up your heart.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your help. Guys, that's so funny. I was in BSS 108 last semester. Just let me back into the same classroom. I already have that key. Okay. Where was I? Sides, parts. So the 2 lateral parts that each house a lung. And then the mediastinum, which contains your heart, surrounded by that pericardial cavity. Okay? So it kind of looks like this. A big old heart. Okay? I'm not an artist. Don't quote me on that. Great. So this would be one part. This would be one part. This would be another part. So it kind of breaks up into 3 like that. Okay? Oh, that was recorded. Part 2, the ventral body cavity. We have the abdominopelvic. No, pelvic cavity. That is divided into 2 parts. Can you guess what they are? Yeah, the abdomen. No. And then the pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity contains the liver, stomach, kidneys, all those other organs, and the pelvic cavity contains the bladder, some of your reproductive organs, and your rectum. Okay? So that ventral body cavity, that's all the front here, the thoracic, gets broken up into 3. You got a lung on one side, you got a lung on the other side, you got a heart in the middle. The abdominopelvic is broken up into 2. The abdominal region where your stomach, your intestines, your kidneys, all that jazz, and then your pelvic region where your reproductive organs, a little bit of your large intestine, your rectum shows up down in your pelvic region. Okay? All of those cavities are lined with membranes that we will call serous membranes. I don't know if it is the next thing. I'm so good. Okay. So that's kind of looking at those cavities. What does the cranial cavity contain? Your brain, yeah. And the vertebral cavity? Your spinal cord. Okay. The thoracic cavity? Yep, heart and lungs. Abdominal cavity? I'm just going to go your digestive organs. And then your pelvic contains your bladder, reproductive organs, and your rectum. Okay. That thoracic cavity then gets broken down further. What's this cavity up here called? Cranial. And this one just below it? Vertebral, yeah. Vertebral. Good. Okay. Interesting. Okay. You have your what cavity down here? We're over here. Well, yeah, you're right. It's this one is thoracic. If I was going in order, you would be correct, but ha 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 ha. Okay. This one is what? Abdominal. This one is pelvic. And the combined name is abdominopelvic. Okay? Like I said, all of these cavities are lined. We line them so that they maintain fluidity, and it helps to protect the organs underneath. Okay? We call these serous cavities that are lined by a serous membrane that is usually filled with serous fluid. It's all very serious, if you ask me. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take the little pity chuckle. Okay. There are a couple different types of that serous membrane. We have parietal serosa. Parietal serosa is on the outer wall of a cavity. And you have visceral serosa. Visceral covers the visceral organs. Okay? So that just means that the visceral serosa is like stuck like glue to that organ. Okay? And the parietal is just on the outside. Some examples that you may have heard are the pleura, the pericardium, and the peritoneum. What do you think the pericardium surrounds? The heart. The heart. So you will have a parietal pericardium, which will cover the outside of the heart. You'll have a visceral pericardia, which will line the inside. Okay? Same thing for the pleura, which covers the lungs, and the peritoneum, which covers the abdominal organs. Okay? Serous fluid is produced by both layers of the serous membrane, both the parietal and the visceral. So you can kind of see that. Let's do that one in green. Parietal here. Visceral just on the inside. Okay? Again, the heart has a visceral and parietal pericardium, as does your abdomen. And it kind of looks like this. Like if you were to punch in a balloon, there'd be a layer that's directly on your hands, and then there's a layer outside of the little air bubble that is the parietal layer, if that helps you visualize that a little bit better. Okay? Your abdomen is broken up into quadrants. For our purposes, we will only really talk about the 4 main quadrants. But for my healthcare girlies, and I mean girlies in the most gender neutral way possible, there's 9 that you're eventually going to need to know, and they're up there for you. Worry about that later, though. For our purposes, we have 4. Those four are the right and left upper quadrants, and then the right and left lower quadrants. You will need to know what organs are in which quadrant, right? So your right upper quadrant, that has like your stomach, your not your stomach, not so much your stomach, your liver. Left, right, left. Okay, left upper quadrant. There you go. Stomach on this side, liver on this side. Your appendix is on the right lower side somewhere, and there's a whole bunch of other intestines and other stuff hanging out in the other spaces. You'll need to know what organs are in which quadrant. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That might be something that shows up on a test. Okay? All right.